What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hey, I'm Sydney. Every single Thursday I sit down, I talk about the craziest true crime in every single state, the one that stuck out to me the most. So if you like true crime, you should subscribe. Okay, I have to start off by saying I found this freaking sweatshirt when I was thrifting the other day. It was only $3 and it's like a true vintage sweatshirt. It's huge on me. It's huge. It's a large. Oh, I was not done my Mountain Dew. There's that out of the way. I would just like to, I guess I'm going to make this a part of my introduction along with my disclaimer every single video from now on, because I keep getting comments that I'm wrong. If I am 100% wrong, like I fabricated something without even meaning to, I just want to say every single video that I have done, I have not lied about anything. It is from the articles that I have researched and I have read. All of my information and my citations come from these articles. So if something is wrong in the articles, that's on the articles. It's just what I'm reading. I tried to fact check as much as I can. So I'll do like 10 articles, and if they all relatively say the same thing, then that is what I'm going to use. I'm sorry if some things are genuinely wrong. I will address them. I tell the stories in the way that like in the summary of the stories. And you obviously know there's so much more that goes into these cases that we don't know about. But I summarize the cases as best as I can, where it's not too long drawn out, but I'm not leaving out a lot of information. And I go based off of that. So I'm very sorry if you don't like my channel, don't watch. Okay, got it. Good. So the disclaimer for today is it is an unsolved murder. Or was it a suicide? This is very sad. It is of a teenager. It happened in Mississippi. Today's video is Mississippi. This case is very odd to me. So here is my disclaimer for this video. As always, I mean no disrespect to the victims or their families. This is just for entertainment purposes for people who love true crime, including myself. This does involve death, along with all of my other videos in my playlist. So if that is something that is triggering to you, I would click off of this video, or if you like it, then you can continue, but I will say viewer discretion is advised. So today we are going to be talking about the death of Norman Ladner in Mississippi. And yeah, it is still an unsolved mystery, but without further ado, we will just get right into it. Norman Charles Ladner was born May 29th, 1972 to Norman Ladner Sr. and Charlotte Ladner. He was the third child out of 3 brothers and 3 sisters. They lived in Picayune, Mississippi, which was roughly about 45 miles from New Orleans, Louisiana. Norman was known to be very responsible and kind and dependable and loving, just a really friendly kid. He was really close to his family, and like normal country boys from the South, he loved fishing and hunting and being outdoors. In the family barn, he had a woodworking shop that he loved working on new crafts, and then he also worked at the family's grocery store that they owned. And so when he was not working, he was found inside the barn working on something new that he was building. Norman was constantly in the workshop working on something, to the point that his parents would have to tell him to come inside to eat dinner, or sometimes Norman would skip dinner and they would have to tell him to come to bed because he had school the next day. He was just constantly found in the barn. As soon as he got out of school, he was back inside the barn. As soon as he got off the bus, or if he walked home, he was in the barn at all times. Norman had no intention of going to college whenever he graduated high school. He actually wanted to go to a trade school where he can learn new skills and new ways of building and just the things that he would do, like new crafts, and that's something he wanted to pursue a career in. Norman protected his siblings and was very kind to them. He was the oldest out of the boys, so he really took on that big brother role for protection and leadership. He was just kind to all of his siblings and showed them just the greatness of life, the greatness of nature, and loved being around his family and his siblings. Like, you know, not normal. Most siblings hate each other, but not Norman. He loved his family so much. Norman's family had property just a little outside Picayune, and this was around 122 acres. The entire land was fenced all the way around, and about 60 of these acres were woods. Norman walked almost every single inch of these woods, and all of the property, he knew almost every inch. He knew it very well. He was caught there whenever he was not inside the barn barn working on a new craft. After he would go exploring or hunting, or even if he was in the barn sometimes, he would always return to his family store around 7 p.m. to help them close up the store. He would mop or sweep or count the money, just closing duties, but sometimes he would be a little closer to 7:30, but he was almost on the mark. He was on the mark around 7 o'clock or 7:30 every single time. It was just like a set schedule that he followed. He was very punctual. On Monday, August 21st, 1989 is when Norman decided to do his daily routine. He was gonna go walk around the property, just do his little nature walks that he normally did. He left with his rifle and his wallet that contained his driver's license along with $140 in cash. Like always, he had the mindset of doing what he needed to do all day and arrived back at the store around 7 p.m. like almost every day. However, on this particular day, Norman did not show up at the normal times that he would at the store, and so his father began to worry. He closed up the store really quickly and drove home to see if Norman was in the workshop working on something, but he wasn't. So Norman Sr., the dad, decided to call up a few friends and get them to come to the property that Norman was normally found at. And he just believed that, we could do a search party. He's either lost in the woods or injured. But why would he be lost in the woods? If he walked there every single day, how would he be lost? The group started searching between 8 o'clock and 8:30, just screaming for Norman, hoping to hear him cry out if he was laying down injured in the woods. And so Charlotte was like, well, maybe if he was injured and able enough to walk, he might have already walked back to the store. So Charlotte gathered her stuff and drove back to the store to see if Norman had possibly been there and just waiting on them. Sadly, when Charlotte got to the store, Norman was not there. During this time is whenever everybody was still searching in the woods, and this is where Norman's body was found by his father. Norman was found with his back lying on the ground, his head cocked to the left, and his left hand lying on his abdomen. His legs were bent, his left foot behind his right knee, and his gun was broken at the barrel just lying next to him. Norman Sr. knelt down to his son and felt him, and he was very cold, which showed that he had probably been dead for a while. Norman Sr. refused to leave his son Norman Jr. until the authorities came, and Norman Jr. also had a single gunshot wound to the head, and the county deputy had to drive to the store to tell Charlotte that they had found Norman, but sadly he was deceased. Pearl River County Sheriff Lumpkin arrived at the scene around 10 p.m. and had to section off everything, perimeter that Norman's body was found, and it was so dark outside that they had to use flashlights to gather up evidence of the crime scene. Sheriff Lumpkin normally rules in foul play at the very beginning of a homicide, but there was no evidence to link that this was a homicide. Later examination showed that the barrel of the gun was roughly 2 inches from Norman's head whenever the gun fired. So now authorities are starting to question if this was an accident, because the proximity from Norman's body to a nearby tree could have indicated that Norman was climbing this tree, lost his grip, and fell, making the gun discharge and shooting him, and it was a fatal shooting. So the gun barrel was broken, but after further examination, whenever they were examining the gun, they saw that it had been broken before but was repaired. This raised the question that could the gun have been fired killing Norman before breaking? Sheriff Lumpkin and the coroner that was at the scene agreed that this was an accidental shooting. They said they were 90% sure that this was an accidental shooting. But of course, to the Ladner's family's shock is when the official ruling for Norman Ladner's death was suicide. The coroner said that there was no way this could have been an accidental shooting due to the way the wound was on Norman's head. The bullet ranged from a close contact that went in through his right temple and exited out of his left temple, which is a typical suicide wound. Sheriff Lumpkin speculated that Norman had went back into these woods, which was a place that he was very comfortable and he knew very well, and that is why he took his life for reasons that they couldn't figure out. Norman Sr., which was Norman's father, did not accept this official ruling. He was like, I knew my son very well. He was not depressed in any way. He loved his life and he lived life to the fullest. He said his son was happy, and they didn't even try to locate the bullet. They didn't even try to fingerprint the gun, so they can't just say that this gun that was found near Norman was the official weapon that was used to kill his son. The Ladners decided to start their own private investigation, and they were going to determine it themselves because Norman's wallet with the driver's license and the cash was found missing. It was not on Norman's person whenever his body was located. Norman also had a 1¼ inch cut on top of his head, which how could that have gotten there if he did commit suicide? Authorities explained that there was a bloody tree root found near Norman's body, so that could have possibly created the cut on Norman's head if he had fallen out of the tree. But again, Norman Sr. did not like this. Norman Sr. explained he did not believe that this was possible due to the cut being on the crown of Norman's head. If he would have fallen, it would have been either on the side of his head or directly on the back of his head with the position that he was found lying. So if he would have fallen, how did he get it directly on top of his head? And I know most people are probably thinking, well, he literally fell head first, but the way his body was found and the distance between him and that tree root, there's just no way that could have happened. Norman's parents continued their investigation by going to the place that Norman's body was found and trying to locate the bullet. They dug up a lot of dirt and placed markers to show where they have already looked. They found the bullet almost directly underneath where Norman's head was lying underneath the dirt, and Norman Sr. was absolutely appalled. The bullet that Norman Sr. found was longer than what Norman's gun would hold. The chamber of Norman's gun was not bored out for the length of the bullet that was found. The bullet that was found had dried blood and hair in it, and whenever looking underneath a small magnifying glass, there was a very small nick in the bullet. Sheriff Lumpkin was very skeptical of this finding. He said that he did not believe that the Ladners had found the exact bullet that killed their son. Sheriff Lumpkin stated that he believed Norman was standing up at the time he shot himself, so where they had found the bullet was impossible. If that was the case, if he did, the bullet would not have been underneath the boy's head. But it's like, you literally just said something about the bloody tree root if he had fallen from the tree. So what is it? Was he standing up when he shot himself, or was he falling from the tree if he shot himself? He's just very wishy-washy. He's not giving answers that they need. Charlotte Ladner, Norman's mom, had a theory of her own. She said she believed her son was lying down when someone who was still standing shot him. Because if you remember, his head when he was lying down was cocked to the side, showing the enter wound on his right temple and the exit wound on his left temple, which would have indicated that the bullet would have been underneath his head. The Ladners sent this bullet off to a ballistics expert, but he could not determine if this bullet had came from Norman's rifle. But when the Ladners received their bullet back, it had been clean. There was no nick in it underneath the magnifying glass, and they believed that this was a different bullet sent back to them. With this information, they decided to go to the medical examiner's office to at least try and get the ruling changed to accidental or unknown. They believed that the bullet was purposely swapped out. This could give them leverage on possibly getting the case reopened and having police not shun them anymore and actually listen to them. A few weeks after they had sent this bullet to ballistics and had received this bullet back is when they were going to go to the coroner's office and argue about the ruling. Whenever they were there, a random stranger pulled Charlotte to the side and told her that she does not need to reopen the case. This stranger told her that she needs to drop it and leave it alone because she's never going to find the person that killed her son if there was a person that killed her son. She needs to go back home to her other children who are still alive. And it was just very threatening because he had cornered her and then immediately left after telling her this. So not only was this very shitty of this random stranger to do, but they didn't get the answers that they were looking for whenever they did go to this coroner's office. The coroner remained steadfast on not changing the ruling and refused to change the cause of death. And it wasn't that they were like hiding something, but it seemed like they just weren't being taken seriously and they just needed to move on. The sheriff's office was also treating the Ladners as if they were just grieving parents who need to move on, and there was nothing malicious about this case. The sheriff's office actually told them abruptly one time that Their son is gone. They just need to accept the fact and they need to move on with their lives. Obviously, it's not uncommon for parents to want the truth regarding the passing of their children, but this was just a case that wasn't adding up and they weren't being taken seriously and they were being treated as just grieving parents and nothing more. And that's just what stresses me out the most, is that you hear a lot of stories where the police could have done more. And it's like, I would rather be annoyed by the police doing so much than having to scream at police to do something, you know? Of course, like all normal parents, Ladners didn't give up and they kept their investigation. Whenever Norman Sr. returned back home, he went back to where the crime scene was, and around 300 yards away from the initial crime scene was this weird radio-like object that was hanging in a tree, and he didn't really know what it was because it didn't have any like buttons or dials or anything, and so he wanted answers. He wanted to know what this thing was because he had never seen it before. The Ladners brought this piece of evidence up to the authorities, but they were also told this doesn't mean anything, give up, move on. They didn't even take this thing into evidence. But whenever the Ladners were discussing with one of their neighbor said, you need to go to an ex-narcotics agent that lives in this area and see if he could figure out what this object is. This former DEA agent said that this was a signal that was used for drug dealers that would send off a low-key signal between an aircraft and someone on the ground, and whenever they were properly aligned, it would send out that signal for the shipment of drugs to drop from the aircraft to someone on the ground. This agent also heard the story of their son and all of the evidence that went into it, and he said that there was no way that this was a suicide. He said he was unsure why the sheriff's department was so quick to tightly wrap up this case and to tell them to move on, confused as to why they weren't trying to help out a grieving family. So this also started up a new theory that maybe Norman was walking in the woods on this property and he came across these drug dealers and he saw something he wasn't supposed to, and they killed him so they didn't have any eyewitnesses. Again, Sheriff Lumpkin denied that this was possible. He said that Norman was not killed by drug dealers, and he said, y'all just need to give it up. This case is closed. Accept the fact that your son is gone. The battle between the Ladner family and the sheriff's department sparked up a lot of rumors. Everyone in the town was talking about the Dixie Mafia that was involved in drug smuggling and murder. A lot of people believed that this being involved in the case was unlikely, but not impossible, because this was a mafia that was in the state of Mississippi. Also, another piece of evidence that seemed to be swept underneath the rug was that Norman's wallet was missing whenever they first found Norman's body, but his personal driver's license was found in New York State. If this is true, then this would not have either been an accident nor a suicide. It would have been a murder. When it comes to his driver's license being found in New York, it was something that I read. It is alleged. There is no official statements saying that this is true, but this is something that should not go unnoticed. This is something that we should keep in mind in case it is true, because that's very random of it to be from Mississippi to New York. People in the town started to question and speculate if there was a drug ring in this town, and could the police be covering this up? Is that why they were so quick to cover up Norman's murder? Possible murder, but murder. Sheriff Lumpkin had some pretty intense background information that came out that he had actually been involved in illegal gambling of dog fighting. So it is possible that he had also been involved in drug smuggling, and he was trying to keep all of his, intense secrets behind and swept underneath the rug. And that is why, if the theory that Norman was killed by drug dealers, that's why he was so quick to be like, no, that's not a thing, because he was involved in the drug ring. Some people even started a rumor that Norman Sr. was involved in the drug smuggling, and that is why it was on his land. So Norman saw something that he wasn't supposed to see, and Norman Sr. had to just cover up his son's death in any way that he could, and then end up getting away with it because it was ruled a suicide. But that doesn't make any sense, because he's trying so hard to get his son's suicide ruling to a homicide, and if that would have been opened back up, he would have been a suspect. So I don't believe that theory, but that is something that happened. It was a rumor that had started. Another rumor was that Norman was not alone the day of his murder. He's walking around with a friend, going hunting and adventuring with a friend, and his friend killed him and escaped. But again, that is alleged, just a rumor, it's not true. Norman's case still to this day sadly has never been reopened for further investigation, and this case also sadly tore their family apart. A few years after Norman's death, Norman Sr. and Charlotte filed for divorce after many issues and frustrations were being brought up, particularly about Norman's death, but this didn't stop them from still trying to figure out the truth after they were split up and separated. They kind of still worked together to find the truth about what happened to their son. Unfortunately, the Ladners could not get their hands on enough evidence for anybody to take them seriously enough to reopen Norman's case. Over the years, this has become a cold case because Norman's face has stopped showing up on the news. People have stopped spreading his name and awareness for him. It is almost as if this just never happened. It's just so sad. In 2003, Norman Sr. passed away and was buried right next to his son, Norman Jr. And in 2007, Sheriff Lumpkin passed away. So for 30 years, there has been 3 main theories that could have happened to Norman the day of his death. The first theory is that all evidence is correct. Norman, for some reason, was fighting internal battles that he never shared with anybody, and he did take his own life, and it was in the place that he was just most comfortable in. The second theory is that this was an accident. Norman was possibly climbing a tree or was stumbling and walking, and the gun discharged that fatally killed him. Final theory is that Norman was murdered by people who were drug smuggling or something else, just something he wasn't supposed to see, and he was killed, so there wasn't going to be any eyewitnesses that explained what they were doing in the woods. So as always, I love to hear your thoughts. Do you have a theory of your own, or do you believe any of the 3 theories? Like, what do you think about this particular case as to what the hell happened? I really don't know what to think. I don't think that it was a suicide, but I'm leaning towards the second and third theory, that it was an accident or, you know, a murder. I think the way that his body was found, and see, I don't know, the way his body was found, I also don't think it could have been an accident. You just never know. I believe that the police should have done some more researching and some more investigation. I believe that. I hated the way they treated the Ladner family. I think that is sick because people suck. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, I have my watered down Mountain Dew. That's gross. Please tell me down below because I'm really stuck on this. I'm really sad that this is an unsolved case, especially of a kid. Like, you would think that the cops would want to do more because he is a kid, but we see how that happened. So yeah, I think that's it, everybody. We are gonna be finished with this video because it's gonna blow my brain some more. I'm just kind of tired of it. If you liked this video, please be sure to like and subscribe and tell your friends. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I love and appreciate every single last one of you, and I will be seeing you guys next Thursday. Bye.